we're going to be interacting with Kojopoku energy analyst together with, we're also going to have Dr. Bert Bwedikusi, UTAG president at the UCC. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Do we have Dr. Bert Bwedikusi? Please say hello.
Hello.
Okay. Doc, thank you so much for making the time to join us this morning.
Thank you.
Right. So let me start with you, even before we get into the papers, just on that beat. So the latest is that you have retracted, at least you have called off the strike for now, after certain engagements. Give us some details of that, per the statement we've seen. Give us the latest details on that.
Well, let me say that yesterday, the National Executive Committee, which is made up of all the 4 elected executives from the 15 public university campuses, and were engaged in a very crunch meeting, which lasted for quite some time, over 5 hours. We considered all the issues that were on the table, as we had communicated earlier. And then we came to a conclusion that we should suspend the industrial action, move immediately into negotiations. But of course, we are going to address the press this morning, later this morning, to give out all the details, what the considerations were. But the bottom line is that in the interest of our members, the UTAG members, whose welfare we seek, in the interest of our students, whom we so much care about, the plea that has come in from all corteses, from the eminent persons, from the National Security Minister, from the side of government, and other major stakeholders. We believe that this was a point for us to listen and then suspend the strike, and then suspend the industrial action and see what the employer will put on the table. We did not want to continue to be at a stalemate and then be seen as not wanting to progress. And so for us, we think that having factored all these things, we are ready. We now want to see what the employer will put on the table as we move into the negotiation.
So if I hear you clearly, Doc, you're basically saying just for peace to prevail, just for some level of understanding to prevail, you decided to suspend your strike, because obviously you've not got the things you want. Your conditions of service have not changed, but just for the sake of peace and for students to get back to work, you did this. Is that the understanding?
Yes, the point is that we needed to, because you see, in all the issues that we are dealing with, the main point which we are on this industrial action, we were at a stalemate. We were not at the table talking. And that is what we think that will bring what our members need. And that is what I said, that in the interest of the members that we are leading. So, yes, we want to move on, but not just moving on for the sake of moving on. We want to ensure that we get something substantial for our members to be able to cushion them so far as their conditions of service is concerned. And so that is key in the considerations that and of course, we took the view that we could not be at a stalemate forever. And so, and of course, having listened to what the general membership of the general public has been saying, what the pleas coming from our students and the major stakeholders, we felt that it was time for us to move on ahead of even all the processes. But let me add that we still have our case in court, the legality or otherwise, which will be determined today, we'll go to court this afternoon. So we felt that there was the need for us to make progress.
And so this is progress. Let me ask you about progress in the sense of what promises have been made to you. I mean, are you progressing in that angle as well? And I ask that specifically from the standpoint of what we've heard Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister, state. He has said that there is simply no money that people like, groups like yours, UTAG, who have embarked on industrial actions, yes, he can understand that you have genuine reasons to embark on these strikes, but at the same time, there is absolutely nothing left in the kitty. So where does that leave you? I mean, what guarantees have you been given?
Well, the finance minister may have been speaking, but of course, in the context of what UTAG has been asking for, I can say that the government side or the employers have agreed that it, and a possible alternative as to how this is going to be done is what ought to be discussed. So we have taken the assurances from the employer side saying that we are ready to commit to this, we are ready to sit down and negotiate and get solutions to it. And so we want to believe that, yes, in as much as anybody will want to say that there is simply nothing, it does not, take away the fact that they need to admit, as they have admitted, and then find a solution. Of course, from UTAG's point of view, and I think that I have made this point earlier, that in our own wisdom, from as academics, we had even proposed a roadmap for them to follow to be able to restore us. So UTAG has from day one has never said that give us everything at a go. So these are options that as we move into the negotiation, we would want to still play it open and see how clean they will come based on the assurances they themselves have given. And I'm sure all of you have heard them. You have heard the assurances, the promises that have come.
Do you have faith?
Record.
Do you have faith? Do you have faith in those assurances? Do you have faith in those things that have been said?
Well, right from day one, we have had issues with trust. And so if you ask me, I will tell you that any UTAG member would say that they do not trust any of these words. But we have gotten to a point where we needed to move on and begin to build a trust. And so we have done this in good faith. We expect that the employer or the government side will also come to the table in good faith so that we do not have to get to a point where we say that, yes, we said it. We said we could not trust their words. And so now that is what is playing out. We want to believe that they will want to live up to expectations.
Maybe finally, so beyond court today, what is the next step for UTAG in going back? Two things. So in going back to the classroom, and secondly, in following up on these promises that have been made to ensure that there is a proper roadmap.
Yes. So for us as a union, in fact, let me explain that the first thing that we were supposed to have done, in fact, we were supposed to have touched base with our members ahead of the press briefing. Unfortunately, I think someone from our own ranks decided to put it out officially, and so the national executive had to quickly move in and salvage the situation. But all our major campuses will go through the formal process of informing our members on the processes that we have had to go through, the challenges that we have faced, and how we have had to arrive at this decision, to formally inform our members for them to rectify the decision. And then, of course, we will expect that management of the various universities, now that this communication has come, probably will come up with when lectures will begin or otherwise. And of course, going into these meetings, the round of meetings that are ahead of us, we are resolute. We are going to marshal all our team, all our technical men, to be able to go into this meeting so that at the end of the day, we'll get the best out of this. Because we couldn't have gone on this industrial action for nothing. Of course, even when we started, that admission that what we were demanding was genuine, was not there. Along the line, that position shifted. And so we hope that going into this round of negotiation, the employer or the government side will be able to also live up to its commitment so that we'll find a lasting solution to this, so that UTAG would not have to leave to come back within the next 2 days or 2 weeks or within the shortest possible time,
right,
to think of embarking on this kind of industrial action.
Dr. Boedikusi, you are always a breath of fresh air, and we're grateful that you always speak to us when we call upon you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, my brother.
Right. Let's continue with the papers now, and joining us via Zoom, we have Kojo Poku, my own big brother, Kojo Poku, energy analyst. Kojo, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, very good morning. How are you, my brother?
I am doing very well. How about you?
I'm well. I'm very well. It's a new day. It's a new week. What else can we ask for?
Right. All right, so let's do this. Even before we dig into the papers, a few topical matters that have come up, and I cannot skip them. Fuel prices are way up. I'm sure you've noticed, you've seen it. You go out there, you purchase fuel, 7.9, thereabouts, 8 point something, depending on what you are purchasing. And now we're being told that some 15% is going to be added on in terms of transport fares from Saturday by some of these drivers' unions and all of that. What is your quick take, since this is your focal area? What is your quick take on the fuel price increments, the different assertions about how we can control them, and the ripple effects on transport fares?
Well, the transport fares, as we are all aware, the GPRTU and its members for some time now have been agitating for the increase. I think it's only fair that we give them some increase, because if you look at the rate at which petrol prices have gone from 4 cedis from last year to where it is today, it's only fair that the negotiation takes place and the transport owners and the drivers also get something small. So I think that's in order. It's unfortunate that our salaries and our standard of living is depreciating, because everything is going up and we are not getting any meaningful increase in our wages and salaries. That said, I think the prices, if the dollar situation improves, let me make this very clear. The international prices are coming down a little bit. The only reason that the next window we might not see a reduction is if the Bank of Ghana is able to find dollar for the BDCs and the OMCs. So what is very key in this coming window, and the next window is next week, which is the beginning of March. If we are able to provide dollar at the bank, at the interbank rate to the BDCs and the OMCs, then definitely we will see some reduction in the pumps. But the international prices are coming down a little bit, but we need to get the liquidity for the industrial, for the local companies to be able to pay their debt and also procure more fuel.
Right. So we've been told about a few things, and these are all monetary matters or economy-related matters. I'll run a few of them by you on the back of the E-Levy, because we've been told so many things about it. Now, Ken Oforiatta has been speaking at that latest town hall in WA, and he says out of the 18 million Ghanaians who qualify to pay taxes, I'm sure you're with me, Mr. Kojopoku, only 2.4 million are paying those taxes. And that has left us in quite a situation. Again, of course, there is the E-Levy, and we've been told, by different people, that if we don't get the E-Levy, free SHS will go. If we don't get the E-Levy, you will not get roads. If you don't get the E-Levy, you will not even get proper security. How do you react, since I've not spoken to you on that before? What is your take on the E-Levy?
Well, I have always started this E-Levy conversation on one basic principle. The government is broke, and I think we all have to admit it.
You say government is broke?
It's broke, yes. If government
what makes you think government is broke?
Why don't you think government is broke? If everything from security to everything that government has to do relies on government getting extra revenue, then that means government doesn't have the money.
But think about it, Kojopoku. Just look at this. So we're looking at a budget in 2022 of 100.5 billion. The E-Levy is going to get us
projected revenue.
Right, projected revenue. The E-Levy will get us max what we've projected, 6.9 billion. That is just 6.86% of our budget. Is the suggestion then that 6.86% of our budget will cripple us?
No, see, let me make this math for you. Let's not use the 100 billion, which clearly they know they can't get. Okay? This year, what we all celebrating and popping champagne on is government only getting 57 billion.
Right.
So the realistic target for government revenue is 57 billion. Okay. Let's say that government is able to do better in plugging loopholes. 2022, we can get 60 billion. Okay? Now, with that 60 billion, let's forget about the expenditure of 150 billion, which has been reduced by 20%. Let's forget that.
Right.
The realistic expenditure is that we spend about, from the recent figures that we've gotten, we spend about 30 billion on interest on loans.
Right.
We spend close to another 30 billion on salaries and wages.
Public sector wages, yeah.
Public sector wages. So combine those two, what you get? From before, in 2021, it was 24 for interest on loans and 28 for salaries and wages, which gave you 52 billion.
Right.
With the revised numbers coming in now, with 30 billion on interest and 30 billion on salaries, 60 billion. All your revenue is being taken out by your salaries and your interest on loans.
So practically, we are in fact broke. They have nothing left to dole out. I mean, we've seen
that government is broke. So
right.
When you ask me, how do I know government is broke? That's
right.
why government is broke. If government can only get 60 billion, and that 60 billion is taken up by salaries and wages and interest on loans, there's nothing left for anything. So that is why government needs more money. Okay, so that's why I'm starting from that premise that let's all understand that government is broke. And I don't think anybody in this country can argue otherwise. So
right.
If we start from that premise that government is broke and doesn't have any money, then how do we now, as citizens, give government more money? In the past, and this is way before this generation, in the 10, 15 years back, we've always borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. And some of us have been worried because we think at a point from 2015, 2014 coming, what we needed was austerity. Okay? And I have always said this, that look, from 2014 coming down, government should have started austerity. But the austerity did not happen then. We promised and promised and borrowed and borrowed. Now, those are things you cannot hide. You are broke, you are broke. Borrowing and borrowing and borrowing only kick the can down the line. So
Kojo, that makes it crucial for government then to have an E-Levy or an alternative. So quickly then, let's get back to the E-Levy. What do you think about it? I mean, their own people, some of government's own people in the past have said that we should go to the IMF or we should use other alternatives. Do you agree?
Well, if you've listened to the IMF representative, he thinks that, look, at the end of the day, whether you go to the IMF or don't go to the IMF, his explanation was that a sick patient, whether you get well at home or you get well in the hospital, you need to get well. Okay? So really and truly, it's through other sort of taxation. The only problem I have is that all tax experts have told us that the E-Levy double tax a lot of people, and it's not good. So we need to resolve that, how the E-Levy double tax, and maybe look at a different taxing system that does not double tax people.
Do you agree with that line of thought that because it is a double taxation, it is not good? Now, another alternative that has been brought up, and Kanamwa yesterday said that he had seen something suggesting that the finance minister was inching towards taxing petroleum products if the E-Levy doesn't go through. So do you agree then that double taxation, so the E-Levy is not an option? And what do you think about taxing petroleum, looking at the prices we're already paying?
Well, look, the petroleum prices are high. I'll be very surprised if anybody is going to put any taxes on petroleum when we are now looking at 8 cedis a liter. Okay? I honestly don't think that's going to happen. Look, I'm not the one in government. I think government need to find an innovative way to basically do something. What I have proposed, and when we had a meeting with the finance ministry, what I proposed was that, look, maybe we can pass the E-Levy at 1%, but have a sunset clause that the E-Levy is only for a certain period of time. Within that time, government should put in place a comprehensive tax, universal tax system, okay? Because Ghanaians don't want to pay the E-Levy, but if we have to, government should give us the assurance that, look, it's going to be a stopgap measure. It's not going to be something that's there. And the rate will come to 1% instead of the 1.5% proposed. But I think at 1%, okay, then we can now look at it for maybe 5 years, while within that time, government put in place a comprehensive universal tax system.
Okay. It's interesting you put it that way. I mean, because as you mentioned, sunset clauses and all of that, we know that in this country, there have been similar projections in the past. And even when the thing was supposed to end, we went ahead, continued with it. So That is a bit of a worry in there. But maybe just to wrap before we get into the papers, very quickly, electricity tariffs are also, projected to go up. There's been the minority, furore in Parliament on the back of that, and calling on the PURC to engage more, and government as well. What is your take? Current electricity tariffs going up?
Well, it's not tariff that's going up, or it's not tariff that has gone up. What they've put up is charges.
Right.
If you want to get a meter, if you want to connect electricity to your house that you are building,
you want to get a pylon or something, the poles, right?
If you want to get certain services from ECG, they've reviewed their tariffs, their charges upwards.
Right.
It's not tariffs. So basically, let's not confuse the two. Right. This charges was approved by ECG, was approved by PURC last year, okay? And it took effect this year. I've heard some people say that, look, PURC did not go through the right processes. I think whoever is saying that should engage PURC and let PURC tell them the process that they went through. But we live in this country and we say that we want companies like ECG to be cost effective. They should be able to recover their costs. If they're not making profit, they shouldn't make losses. If we hold that as true, then we should let them charge realistic prices for their services. And if they've gone to PURC and PURC has reviewed it and think that the realistic prices ECG should charge is these, then we should accept it and move on. Like I said, it's unfortunate that everything is going up, but our standard of living and wages are not going up.
Let's get into the papers now. Daily Graphic, Auditor-General surcharges accountant with 943,000 Ghana cedis. That story on page 16. And it tells you about some of the matters that often come up when it comes to the Auditor-General's report and how we are bleeding as a country. So the Auditor-General has surcharged an accountant at the Ashanti Regional Office of the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to refund to the state an amount of 943,000 Ghana cedis. The amount, which was part of internally generated funds earmarked for the operations of the directorate, was allegedly misappropriated by the accountant. We see this time without number, Kojopoku, and year in, year out, we have these huge sums. From the last Auditor General's report, over 12 billion going into this. Yes, a lot of people will tell you there are different dynamics, many things that go into it. But now that we are struggling with something like an E-Levy, if we plug some of these holes, obviously, we'd be faring better. What do you think?
Oh, much better. And I think that it is not good to just surcharge people. It should be criminal. And I think that's the only way civil servants will set up. I think it's about time government makes some of these things criminal. When people do what they do and they are just surcharged to refund the money, yes, they should refund the money, but they should also face criminal charges. If it goes down that it's negligence and it just by a mere paperwork mistake or whatever, we need to have a certain level of fear in the civil service and the public sector. In the past, in the olden days, one of the things that families will fear was what is called a banker, which is government debt. Now, every young person wants to go into government and rape the government of its money because it thinks that that's where you go and take money and nobody comes after you. It's nobody's money. It is people's money. We don't have enough to give the government. So the more seriousness we attach to some of these things, the better. We can't be asking Ghanaians to pay more and more and more, which we don't have, okay? Right. But then people sit in responsibility of such a person and he misappropriate almost 1 million Ghana cedis. And it's very, very, very inappropriate. And I think we should make some of these aspects, we should make them criminal.
All right. UTAG fights court order, E-Levy better alternative than IMF. That's according to the finance minister. NCC chair takes up ECOWAS appointment, of course, now ambassador to Liberia on behalf of ECOWAS. And polling station nominations, anxiety, tension in MPP. Party assures of calm, extends deadline. Very briefly on this, Kojo, how do you feel about the UTAG situation? And now that they've lifted or they've decided to go back to the classroom, very briefly on that. And then maybe you can add your thoughts on the entire polling station bits from the MPP, different
I have a very different take on the UTAG thing. And for me, if you listen to the doctor you spoke to or the professor you spoke to earlier, if that's what they were looking for, a roadmap and government attention on some of their needs, why did we waste the kids 4 months of the kids' life? Okay, because, I mean, if all you wanted was a roadmap, I mean, you had about 3 months at home. They didn't, I don't know if they were engaging government, but you see, most of these problems is also to do with the civil servants at these ministries. They always make it look like it's the politicians that's supposed to take a decision. It's not. Okay, the chief directors of these ministries, what do? What is wrong with taking meetings with UTAG? To leave it to the point where UTAG feels that nobody is attending to them, so they will back on an industrial strike. It's really not right. We need to have a system in place that is not only the politician that is blamed. We need to start blaming the civil servants as well, because the chief directors in these ministries and its colleagues could have easily taken a meeting with UTAG and report to the appropriate minister and government what needs to be done. Okay. And if all UTAG was asking for was engagement and a roadmap, why did we have to really waste 4 months of the kids, 4 weeks of the kids' education only on just an attention? Right. So look, we thank God it's over. I mean, I hope they don't go and rush through the curriculum. If the kids have to be in school longer and then eat into their summer vacation, let's do that. Right. But let's not go in already. I mean, the quality of education coming out of the tertiary is not great. Right. But let's not go in and rush through the curriculum. Let's extend the time they have to stay in school to make sure that we go through the curriculum properly.
Your take on the tension in MPP polling station elections, briefly, maybe some 30 seconds.
For me, it just tells you that, look, everybody at the grassroots of the MPP is very energetic, very enthusiastic to get going, and it's unfortunate that there are fights here and there. When you have a party at whose grassroots everybody is fighting to be part of it, it's a good thing. But the negative part of it is that there are fights here, people are disrupting property, people are destroying properties, and that is the negative side. But overall, for me, I just see it as, look, the grassroots of the party is energized, they want to get battle ready, and everybody wants to be part of this process.
Let's look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Revenue mobilization for economic recovery, E-Levy better option. That's according to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. There's also man jailed 8 years for defiling girlfriend's companion, and fire destroys stores at Abuabo Market. The final newspaper, Deputy Minority Whip pushes for release of 2.4 billion Ghana cedi common fund arrears. And then Road Safety Authority commends government on plans to dualize Accra-Kumasi Road. There's also rising cost of living is a global crisis. Asia is the only global inflation exception. And just this morning, Kojo, I was listening to someone, report from Kenya about the cost of living there and even the rise in cost of bread and all of that. So reality is kicking in across the world, not just in Ghana. The Daily Guide newspaper, Nigeria's Veep commends UBA Group chairman. MPP presidents fight over delegates. Pictured there, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, Alan Tremantin, Boache Jako, and Owusu Efriye Akoto. And the graphic business, locals miss out on booming stock market. But let me just go back briefly, and then the final point I'll have you make. The rising cost of living is a global crisis. How much of it would you ascribe to COVID-19, Kojo Poku, and how have you felt it realistically, beyond rising fuel prices and all of that? How have you felt it personally?
Well, there's a lot going on around the country and in the world in terms of moving of stuff. Right. Most of the products come from Asia, China, and the market women who are able to go to China and negotiate better prices have not been able to go. They have to do their business online, and then shipping these goods to them, the cost of shipping has also gone up like 2 or 3-fold. Right. So all that basically gets down and amount to us paying for a lot more than we would normally will. COVID is to be blamed big time. Post-COVID, most industrial nations are trying to recover. Then we have tensions in the Russian borders with Ukraine. And there's a lot in terms of their guys from OPEC not wanting to basically pump more oil. So there's inflation through and through all over the world. For me, it's really to do with when you do business with people, because the company or the person you're doing business with, their revenue is not going up. They expect you to render the same business at the same cost, but it's not possible. Okay, so I'm rendering consultancy services and logistics services to companies who doesn't want to pay more even for transportation. They don't want to pay more for services,
Right.
But overall, we realize that everything is going up. And that is where my fear is with the increase in transport fares.
Right.
When that goes up, everything else will also go up. But unfortunately, it's unavoidable. We just have to live with it. That is why inflation is at all-time high.
Okay, so we just have to live with it. Kojo Poku, thank you so much for your time with us this morning. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, my brother. Have a nice day.
All right, you do. Do have a good one. And today happens to be the birthday of Captain Prince Kofi Amwabeng, retired. Formerly of UT Holdings, UT Bank. Today is your 70th birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir. And may God continue to enrich your life and bless you. Captain Prince Kofi Amwabeng, retired. Happy birthday to you. Up next, we have sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullah. He brings you the latest. Stay.